While estimates vary, the leadership development industry is about $80 billion a year right now and projected to grow to about $200 billion by 2034. And so one of the questions is, organizations are clearly investing tons of money every year in leadership development, and that trend is only expected to grow. So why is it that most leadership development programs fail? Well, in this video, we're going to cover exactly why that is and how to change it. So let's get going. The number one reason why most leadership development programs fail is simply for a lack of measurement. That's right. So within talent development or learning development, there's this thing called the Kirkpatrick model. And without going into too much detail, it has 4 different levels, and most organizations really measure levels 1 and 2, which is, hey, how did you enjoy this training thing that you went to? And level 2 is, did you actually retain the knowledge? Can you show that you actually learned something or you knew it? Getting into levels 3 and 4 has to do with behavior change, and then ultimately the holy grail for most people is level 4, which is business impact or return on investment. And it is in levels 3 and particularly 4 where things really fall off for most organizations. Now this happens for a few different reasons. One could be that the people running those programs don't actually know how to measure leadership development and correlate it to business impact or return on investment, especially in a meaningful way. And so when you don't have the skills, you're not able to do it. As a result, since that's been the case for many folks in that field for many years, there's also a lot of organizations who just simply don't expect or demand it. And so hasn't been necessarily that standard. The field has professionalized a lot in the last 20 years, where among my peers, it is common that most of us have a doctoral degree of some sort. And if not, many of those have master's degrees and several years of experience. So the standard has just really gone up in terms of who does this kind of work. And with that comes, additional ways of trying to measure impact to show value to our clients. So let's get into what exactly is it that's missing with the measurement. So when you're trying to measure business impact, you can do this a few different ways. And let's just start with some basics. Really what we're talking about here is a need to essentially do a study to measure change. If you want to be able to say, this leadership development program correlates to these changes in business terms, I need a way of tracking the data, knowing what I'm measuring, and how to connect that so I can have some confidence that that's actually what's taking place. How does that actually work? Well, the simplest way is you simply have a comparison group. So you have a group who goes through the leadership development program and a group that does not. This way you can take a number of factors that you determined from the beginning, things like employee turnover, perhaps grievances filed by employees against their managers. You could look at employee engagement scores. Glassdoor reviews, though, the way that Glassdoor has changed their privacy practices has probably had some negative impact on that. But you can look at internal things, again, like data, retention rates, employee satisfaction scores. You can look at these as a range of factors to see how healthy the organization is. And then by separating those who are going through the program and those who are not, it now helps you see, okay, over time, as we trend, because of course someone's not going to just go to one training program, one workshop, one seminar, and then instantly everything's going to change. It takes time. So you can have people go through a program where you have predetermined factors you're wanting to measure that help you connect what actually makes a difference to the business, and then you track those individuals over that same period of time. So this might be 12, 18 months, you might even do 2 or 3 years, because again, these sorts of things take quite a bit of time to really show some effect. Now, you can see benefits earlier, absolutely, but we're looking at organization-wide change and trying to get a pretty high degree of confidence that the program is actually connected to those positive changes. You need some time to develop enough data so it doesn't just look like an outlier. All right, so now that we've picked our factors and we've picked a group that's going to go through the training program and a group that's not going to go through the program. Now we're ready to actually get started. We have the people go through the program. Part of how we also want to track during that process is going back to level 3 of Kirkpatrick that I mentioned before, which is behavior change. Now, what exactly do we mean when we're talking about measuring behavior change? Well, this can take the form of surveys and focus groups. You can try some different forms, but surveys and focus groups are kind of your easier, best way to do this. So let's say manager goes through a workshop where they learn how to give performance feedback to their employees. You get some feedback from that manager before they come in about how confident do you feel in your abilities, how often do you feel like you are capable and ready to give feedback. Are there times when you feel you should have given feedback but you hesitated because you felt like you didn't know how to do it properly? And so you can take this to figure out what was the state of that learner prior to them coming in, and then after the training you find out, okay, is there a change? After going through the training, how do you feel about these same things? Now, just because someone might feel better at the end of a workshop when they went through it and it's all fresh, that's good, but that doesn't tell you that they will actually do those things back on their teams. And that doesn't tell you for how long they may do that, because it needs reinforcement. So to do this, we continue tracking after the training event happens over time, and this is part of why you need that time to measure and track the program. So for instance, I may, after 30 days, ask, okay, since you attended this course, have you had the opportunity to provide this type of feedback, yes or no? And then we can ask them on a scale, how confident did you feel in your ability to give the feedback? How prepared, how much did you feel you could use the tools you were given? Did you find that the tools were effective? So you can ask these questions to find out, are they doing it? And if so, how is it going? Now that's what's called self-report data. So we're sending it out to a learner and they are reporting back on their own. And we totally get that people can lie and make stuff up, so we can only rely on it very little. We don't put all of our faith in the fact that everyone's going to be honest in how they're doing with it. Because of course, it's really enticing to say, yep, I'm doing it, it's going awesome. So instead, this is where things like other surveys and focus groups can come in to be really helpful. We can send out a survey to their team members and ask, hey, are you seeing these things happen? Are they happening better? What's your sense of this? We can send that to the people that manager supervises, and we can send it out to others, similar to a 360 survey, and we can send it out to others that they might also work with. While they might not be providing performance feedback to those individuals, since they're not their manager, they may need to provide some type of feedback, have an issue or a challenge with how a project's going. You're requesting something from a work team that you're on. It's a matrix team, it's a cross-functional team, and you might have requested something from that individual for a part they're responsible for. They didn't do it, and so now that person feels like, hey, I should address this. This has happened more than once. You could ask them about things like that. So once we kind of take this behavior change, we now have a bit more ammunition to help us really find out if this program is having any effect. Because what we've done is a few very important things. First, we've separated those who are going through the program and those who aren't. Another thing is we are tracking pre and post sentiment about the topics. So how's a person feeling beforehand and how are they feeling afterwards? And we can take those same questions about their sentiment for a topic, and we can also continue to ask those over time. So longitudinally, over time, to kind of use a research term, longitudinal just means over time. So we can ask those similar questions over time to find out, as time goes on, do they get less confident in their ability, or if they're really putting those skills to work, they're practicing them, they're using them, does their confidence actually grow over time, which is what we really want to see. So we want to provide practical, relevant tools and skills in leadership development programs, That's a really key thing when designing a really good program. And then we want to see if they are actually being used, learners' feelings towards that topic getting better. And so by doing this, we can now take over 6, 12, 18, 24 months, 36 months. We can take different intervals, we can kind of chop them up, use them as milestones, and we can start to look at trends among all those other factors we talked about. So employee engagement scores, retention scores, grievances, absenteeism, how often someone calls out without notice, unplanned absences, things like that. Also performance issues. So we can kind of take a number of these different factors that the HR function should be tracking anyways. We can try to pull those together, and we can take that data and then separate it out between those who went through the program and those who didn't. And we can compare the two groups. And by having a comparison group, we can see, is there any meaningful change in any of those factors or those factors as a group? And if so, is there any correlation between that change and whether or not someone went through the program or didn't? So for instance, if we see overall, just to make things really simple, we're having a positive trend in all those factors we talked about by 7% over the last 18 months, that's fantastic. If I see that that same 7% trend generally holds true between both of my comparison groups, then it tells me that the change doesn't really have much to do with the program. You may find that you tracked 5 or 6 factors and you only can show positive correlation on 3 or 4 of them. That's still a win. And what you can do with that data is then translate that into dollars and cents. So let's say that retention improved and you're able to bring retention down by 6% over that 24 months that you did this whole project. You could then say, all right, for the people on these teams, what is the average salary? And then you could take estimates for turnover costs, which can range anywhere from 40-50% to 300% of an employee's annual salary, depending on the role, how long it takes. There's different factors, but sure, the Society for Human Resources Management, that's kind of the range that they've given before in terms of turnover cost. So you can kind of come up with a multiplier on that. So for each employee, let's say average salary on that team is $45,000, and you say, okay, given our turnover, we're going to kind of estimate from what we know of company data, turnover costs, we're going to say it has a multiplier of 0.75. So it's going to cost us 75% of an employee's annual salary. Okay, so now you can take that and you can look at times 7%, and that's how much you're saving the company by reducing your turnover. Same thing with employee engagement scores. Part of it, the big thing with employee engagement, why organizations care about it so much, is because it's a measure of discretionary effort. That's really what it is. It's saying how motivated and engaged is someone. So you can have 2 employees doing the exact same job, one who is doing just enough to not get fired, do just the bare minimum of their job, and another one who's really wanting to go above and beyond. They're ambitious, they feel supported, they really want to see themselves rise. Well, between those two, it's clear which one is adding more value to the organization. Even though they both have the same job title, they may both get paid the exact same amount. So the question is, all right, how do I get the other employee to put forth the same discretionary effort as the other one so that we can get more value from that individual? Now, I may reward those people with some pay increases, but as a business, I'm looking for a return on investment. So if I give them, let's say, a 5% pay increase, I'm looking for more than 5% economic benefit in the work product that they put out. And so again, it's a business decision, it's a business choice, it's strategic in nature. I know that if I have an employee that's showing some promise, that's making a bit more effort, if I can see that happen over time, it is worth it to me to give them the incentive of a pay raise or a bonus. Maybe it's a spot bonus, one time, $500, $1,000, whatever it is that makes sense for your business, to say, hey, we recognize the extra work you're putting in, we really appreciate it, and here's a way that we can show that to you. So there you have it. The number one reason why most leadership development programs fail is from a lack of measurement, from a lack of tracking. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope to make some more videos. Please let me know in the comment section what other sort of topics you might want me to tackle. All right, thanks.